Hey, hi, hello. Welcome to Diana Emerson today. We're listening to Snapped. This is about Gail, Gash. And I'm coloring in between. Investigators follow a trail of mysterious clues to find out what could lead to such a violent crime. We locate close to $20,000 in cash. When they were picked the phone the first time they called in, we immediately paid the phone out. Detectives raced against the clock to unravel a violent conspiracy. It was clear that they were concerned that they might be being listened to. They were saying things in layers and in code. He said to us, what would happen if I told you that I sent somebody there to beat him up? He had a reputation for being involved with a drug gang. He was telling her that they can't arrest her if they can't find her. To this day, they still don't know exactly where he is or where he went. They don't even know if he's still alive. January 25th, 1994, St. Petersburg, Florida. Officer L.J. Hartzick is just beginning his shift when he gets a disturbing call from dispatch about a body found in a nearby apartment complex. It was probably about 20 to 5 after 3. I was in my cruiser getting ready to drive to my zone that I patrol when I heard the call come out. At the apartment complex, Officer Hartzick is met by a frantic young woman. Upon arrival, I talked to witness Patricia Denino. I speak to her briefly. She explained to me that the victim was in the bathtub inside the apartment. Once I entered the apartment, I saw that the apartment was in disarray. Everything was thrown about. I went into the bathroom area. I see the victim with his face down, with his hands and his feet tied behind his back with water. I see that the tub is halfway full with water. It's bloody. All I thought about at that time was to preserve the crime scene. As Officer Hartzick waits for detectives outside, he gathers preliminary information from the 911 caller, Patricia Denino, who says the victim is her fiancé, Dr. Louis Davidson. The deceased was a doctor in charge of the pediatrics at Bayfront Hospital. Miss Denino was crying hysterically. She was upset. It was hard to interview her. I had to take my time and work with her to get the information about who this doctor was. 39-year-old Louis Davidson was well known throughout the St. Petersburg community. He was so knowledgeable. He was such a good mentor to all of us nurses doing pediatrics. Though Louis considered the U.S. home, it only moved to the States in 1983. Louis was born in Jamaica, born in Kingston. His father is a university professor, very, very smart. He had a very close family with his parents and his sisters. With his family's encouragement, Louis had set his sights high from an early age. He was very gifted intellectually, and it was destined that he would become a doctor. He was brilliant at it. I feel like that was his calling, and he knew it. Though medical school rarely left time for dating, Louis made room in his schedule when a beautiful young model caught his eye at a bus stop in Jamaica. Denise Davis was originally from Jamaica. She was Miss Jamaica pageant. She was a finalist in that pageant. Denise was an absolutely stunning woman. She was 22, he was 27 when they met. She was waiting at a bus stop, and he stopped in his car and offered her a ride. And I think she genuinely liked him. She genuinely loved him. After a short engagement, the couple tied the knot in 1982 and quickly moved to the States. 3 years later, their daughter Natalie was born. They got married, and they moved to the Tampa Bay area where they lived and had a child together. Denise was a very caring mother, supportive, loving, and She was pretty much at home with Natalie the first few years. Dr. Davidson doted on Natalie. He just glowed when he would talk about Natalie, and he loved her very much. After climbing the ranks in his profession, Lewis settled into his career at Bayfront Hospital in St. Petersburg.
He eventually became the head of the pediatrics in the emergency room division.
He was a good man, a talented man. He had this kindness and this compassion for his job and for the people around him and his patients that he took care of. While his career blossomed, his relationship with Denise began to crumble.
Approximately 1991, Denise Davidson and Dr. Davidson separated. It was at that time that Dr. Davidson moved out of the residence.
He got an apartment in St. Petersburg, and she remained in their home. And Lewis and Denise decided to make their separation legal.
Dr. Davidson had developed a new relationship with Patricia Dino. Patricia Dino works for Bayfront Hospital within the emergency room and emergency room pediatrics where Dr. Davidson works. So they started off just knowing each other from the hospital. At this point in time, they were boyfriend, girlfriend.
Lewis wasn't the only one who had moved on.
Denise Davidson still lived in Tampa. She developed a relationship with a gentleman from Jamaica, Leo Cisneros. So Dr. Davidson and Denise Davidson were kind of going on with their lives.
Not long after their separation, St. Petersburg homicide detectives have just arrived at Lewis Davidson's apartment, where his girlfriend Patricia found him dead in a bathtub.
I arrived just after the initial officer on scene, Officer Hansen, had spoken and took the initial statement from Patricia Denino. At that point, I arranged for Patricia Denino to be transported to the St. Petersburg Police Department. As we start to process us, I go through the front door and I can see that obviously that apartment was ransacked. Someone was looking for something.
In the foyer, detectives identify their first potential clue.
We notice there is a footprint, a shoe impression on the floor. Whether it was wet or grease or oil, whatever may have been on the bottom of the shoe, left an impression on that tile. It was a certain make, a Voigt, which wasn't a real popular type of shoe, and it appeared to be about size 9.
Detectives also find what appears to be evidence of a struggle.
I can see items thrown on the floor. The cushions were off the couch. There's a vacuum cleaner sitting here that has the cord cut and a pair of scissors laying on the ground, which is obviously not in its normal place. In the bedroom, the closet door is open, and I can see clothes and items have been thrown onto the floor. It's a mess inside that closet. As I approach the bathroom, I'm looking and I'm seeing the wall where there's obvious blood spatter here on the wall.
Inside the bathroom, detectives get their first look at the victim.
He was drowned, well tied and blindfolded, drowned in a bathtub full of hot water.
A vacuum cleaner cord used to tie up his hands, and there was a cashmere article of clothing that was used to tie him up as well.
These seem extremely violent in nature. The appearance leads me to believe that there's more than one person involved. Davidson, they found a garment bag, and in that garment bag was a substantial amount of money. We locate close to $20,000 in cash, along with Dr. Davidson's jewelry. The items of true value were not stolen. Instead, we have a staged crime scene and a dead doctor with a very brutal type of killing.
Coming up, investigators uncover suspicious secrets.
She denied that she was posing for 30 pictures.
Was Dr. Davidson involved in some kind of activity that could have brought this type of crime closer to him?
The first person to mention was in that type of crowd where he would have known that people who were able to pull off such an event.
St. Petersburg detectives are investigating the vicious
phone was filled with, at that time, still warm water.
While CSI techs finish up their search for additional evidence, investigators turn to Lewis's neighbors for leads.
We identified two witnesses that observed a couple playing with a ball around 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, just outside the doctor's apartment near by the pond. It was a black man and a white woman, a blonde-haired woman, playing catch with a cricket ball, which is not something you would normally see here in Florida. They noticed the young lady appeared to be more of a British type accent.
Witnesses mentioned that after the unusual game of catch, the man disappeared and the woman got into a nearby car.
Here is someone that's just sitting in the apartment complex, basically in front of the doctor's apartment. So now we're looking at some suspicion there.
While officers continue canvassing the neighborhood, detectives head to the station to conduct a formal interview with Dr. Davidson's girlfriend, Patricia Danino.
She said she was at work that day at Bayfront Hospital, but whether there's any involvement at this point, we have no idea who's involved.
Patricia says she had just started her day shift when she last spoke with Lewis.
Dr. Davidson was finishing his shift around 8 a.m., and then once he finished the shift, he had a meeting to attend, 9 a.m. meeting, hospital for the pediatric section. When she tried to call him afterwards, he was not responding to her calls.
Around 3:30.
When she arrives at the apartment complex, she enters into the apartment. The door was unlocked or closed, and she starts to notice that the apartment is missing. At that point, she enters the bathroom, and she discovers Dr. Davidson in the bathtub.
Patricia says she has no idea who could have wanted Lewis dead, but he has been getting some strange calls lately.
Numerous hang-up calls, 66, I think, in a matter of a few weeks. And Dr. Davidson or Ms. Danino would pick up the phone. The person on the other end would immediately hang the phone up. The detectives, that sounded like someone trying to track his movements, where he was at different times, what he was doing.
Patricia says the most recent suspicious phone call was just that morning.
Somewhere between 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning, Patricia Danino receives a phone call at the hospital. Someone is looking for Dr. Davidson, and they asked for him. She replied that he was not available at the time. Things felt suspicious involving the calls at the hospital, but we did not know who would be connected to this that may have committed harm to Dr. Davidson.
Detectives ask if Lewis could be connected to anything illegal.
Initially, the $20,000 in the garment bag caused her to ask the alarm, was Dr. Davidson involved in some kind of activity that could have brought this type of crime closer to him?
Patricia refused the notion.
She explained to me that the doctor would keep money in his closet so that it would not know this money was in the bank account because of the divorce situation. That was a tumultuous relationship between the two of them. There were allegations from her that he had abused her. There were allegations from him that she had posed for erotic photos. Of course, he denied the abuse that she had, that she was posing for dirty pictures.
Patricia says the focus of the divorce revolved heavily around the couple's daughter, Natalie.
They had fought very bitterly over custody for Natalie. Denise wanted to take Natalie with her to Jamaica, and Lewis was determined that was not going to happen. He was not going to lose access to his daughter.
After finishing up with Patricia, detectives called Bayfront Hospital to verify her alibi.
We were able to determine right away Patricia Danino had been at the hospital during the daytime after the doctor had left from his shift. And we ruled her suspect for the
It's no secret that if you have an estranged spouse,
They met with her at her home in Tampa and made the notification that her husband had been found dead.
when Denise Davidson was asked what she was doing the morning he was murdered, she really didn't have a lot to report other than just usual routine things that she always did. She didn't go to work that day, but she did have to care for her daughter.
She told law enforcement They were in the middle of a custody fight. She said that he's the father of her child, and that she had no reason to want her conversation.
As a matter of routine procedure, detectives asked Denise if she's currently involved with anyone new.
The information that was provided to us by Denise Davidson that the boyfriend's name is Leonardo Cisneros.
The two had met during one of her visits back home to Jamaica. Become really enamored with her. Maybe at one point, then asked her to marry him.
Denise was questioned about the whereabouts of her new boyfriend, Leo Cisneros. She indicated that he was back in Jamaica, that he had not been in the Tampa Bay area at the time Dr. Davidson was killed.
Back at the station, detectives researched Denise's new flame.
He owned a nightclub in Jamaica, in Kingston. He had a reputation for being involved with the drug gangs there. We were able to determine that several years prior, he had been arrested during a traffic stop in Georgia, and a warrant had now been issued for trafficking narcotics.
Between his fiance's custody dispute and his own criminal record, investigators feel Leo could have both the motive and means to kill Lewis.
He definitely was in that type of crowd where he would have known people who were able to pull off such an event. So it was the determination that I made that our best effort at this point was to be surveillance on Denise Davidson, to see if Denise Davidson would lead us to Leo Cisneros.
Coming up, the top suspect proves to be a slippery one.
He was there illegally and immediately fled thereafter.
And watchful eyes soon witness unexpected twist.
After the murder, she sent $15,000 via Western Union.
It's been 24 hours since Dr. Lewis Davidson was found violently murdered in his St. Petersburg apartment. Detectives have placed his soon-to-be ex-wife, Leo Cisneros.
We can't say that Denise is involved at this point, but she is the girlfriend to Leo Cisneros, and he's our first person of interest.
On January 27th, Denise's surveillance team calls detectives with unexpected news.
We follow her to a bank. She goes to an ATM machine with some money, and we surveil her to a Western Union money transfer facility.
Detectives subpoena Denise's financial records and find suspicious activity.
She would send Western Union money orders either to Robert Gordon in Miami or to a woman who lived in Miami. She had sent some money prior to the murder, about $7,500, and then after the murder, she sent another $7,500. So all told, she had sent $15,000 via Western Union.
Detectives first look into the name Robert Gordon and find a curious connection.
Robert Gordon was a gentleman from Jamaica. He was known to be an associate of Leo Cisneros, who's Denise Davidson's boyfriend. He did have a criminal history, so immediately that began to tie everybody together.
One of the last Western Unions that was sent was by Denise Davidson to Quezon in Miami, Florida.
Though Carol seems to have no obvious connection to Leo or Denise, detectives continue to monitor their communication.
We looked at a lot of the phone calls that were being made by Denise Davidson and phone calls to Denise Davidson and noticed some numbers that kept repeating. One of these numbers was to a bar in Jamaica called Peppers. We were able to ascertain through a lot of folks that Leo Cisneros was a part owner of Peppers.
Detectives reach out to Leo directly.
He was in Jamaica. It was actually at Peppers Bar in Kingston. I left a phone message for him there at the bar. He actually returned my phone call. Leo told me that he had troubles in the past in the United States for drug trafficking, and that he couldn't use his real name to travel to the country. So he would utilize fictitious passports, and that's how he was traveling back and forth.
Not only does Leo come clean about entering the U.S. illegally, but the 32-year-old also admits to being in Florida the day of the doctor's murder.
He felt like he was being trouble because he was there illegally and immediately fled thereafter. He wanted to play down his role as much as possible. He did not want to be in the forefront in the investigation.
Though Rio claims
We make the determination that we're going to do a wiretap Denise Davison's phone.
The calls were interesting because it was clear that they were concerned that they might be being listened to. They were saying things in layers and in code.
The conversations between Leo and Denise would refer to, have you talked to your people in Miami yet? Have you heard from your people?
Yeah.
So they said there.
Well, it's there. I sent it from like 20 months ago.
detectives also pulled Denise's phone records from the day of Melissa's murder.
We were able to identify a 305 area code phone number being called. It's a pager number. On the morning that Dr. Davidson was killed, from Denise Davidson's house, this pager was called 52 times between 9 a.m. and 10:30 a.m.
Detectives find the number used to return the pages equally interesting.
The phone was bought and paid for by Denise Davidson. We also found numerous phone calls by Robert Gordon to Denise Davidson's phone number. So law enforcement started to find a link between this Robert Gordon and Denise Davidson and went beyond the mere providing money through those West Virginia names.
When detectives triangulate the phone's coordinates on the day of the murder, everything comes full circle.
It's in the area of Dr. Davidson's office. The cases are done with this phone, and we can actually track it. They track it all the way across the bay to a Days Inn.
1 month after the murder of Dr. Davidson, detectives head to the Days Inn.
They have photos of Robert Gordon, and the people who worked there specifically remember that Robert Gordon stayed in a specific room at that hotel with a white female on the day Dr. Davidson was murdered. They were able to verify the identity of the white woman because she's the one who registered for the room. She wrote down the name Susan Shore. The front desk receptionist also identified a second black male. She noticed that they were very nervous. In fact, they left in such a hurry, they left behind some clothing.
Without hesitation, detectives collected and examined the forgotten belongings.
Inside that bag are a pair of size 9 white sneakers and a gray sweatshirt. This one drop was on it. We knew that was very similar to the exact same pattern that we had seen previously in the foyer area.
They had an idea, but they couldn't say definitively until they sent it to the FBI lab that it was a match.
Investigators hope the evidence will identify the second male at the hotel. Awaiting results from the crime lab, detectives head to Miami on February 28th to track down 31-year-old Robert Gordon.
Based on our observations, what we found, the Western Union money, the eyewitness to him at the apartment complex the week before, we felt we had enough, so we're looking to arrest Robert Gordon in Miami. It was actually on a transit bus, not leaving the area but local transit. We arrested him off that bus for the first degree murder, and we transported him back to Pinellas County for prosecution.
Detectives then head to the home of Carol Kaysen, the second individual Denise had wired money to after the murder.
They followed up on that and went to see her and discovered that there was another man there at the time who gave the name of Tony. So they said, well, it would be helpful if we had, say, hair samples from you that would help us and maybe fingerprints. At that time, while they're talking to him, his fingerprints are checked, and it's determined that Tony Bowens is not his name, but his name is Roman Conner. There was a warrant out for him for drug charges from South Carolina, so they arrested him in Miami and put him in jail.
As for Carol Kaysen, she admits she did obtain money on Merrill's behalf, but strenuously denies knowing anything about the murder. After an alibi rules Carol out, detectives move on to 26-year-old Susan Shore.
Susan Shore was gone. She was a cruise ship cocktail waitress and had shipped down for Jamaica, and when she got wind that they were looking for her, she made sure to get high.
On March 1st, detectives received word from the FBI about the evidence collected from the Days Inn.
We were able to link them to Merrill McDonald and link them to Robert Gordon. They located blood on the void sneakers. That blood was later compared with the DNA blood of Dr. Davidson, and they determined it was a match.
Detectives now have enough evidence to officially charge 47-year-old Merrill McDonald with the murder of Louis Davidson. But there's just one problem.
He had a drug trafficking warrant. Unfortunately, the warrant was his whereabouts was still unknown.
With Susan and Merrill on the run and Leo in Jamaica, detectives focus on Louis's bitter ex.
We were able to identify that January 24th, the day before the murder, Denise Davidson used her credit card at the Walmart behind her house in Tampa and purchased a pair of size 9 void sneakers and a gray sweatshirt that was of the same brand as the one discovered in this hotel room. My jaw just about hits the ground because it's not very often that you have this type of evidence.
Coming up, Denise appears to go from suspect to victim.
She felt like her life was in danger because of this threatening phone call.
It was a sort of raspy voice, a message you see in your house. You'll be sorry.
Just over a month after the murder of Dr. Louis Davidson, detectives suspect the crime was orchestrated by the victim's estranged wife, Denise Davidson, and her new man, Leo Cisneros. In a stunning turn of events, on February 25th, Denise contacts detectives, claiming she could be next.
She calls me and says, Detective Salona, someone's threatening me. She's basically trying to say, hey, these people who killed her husband are after her.
It was a sort of raspy voice, a message received at her house. You'll be sorry, Denise.
She felt like her life was in danger because of this threatening phone call. Little did Denise Davidson know that at the time that phone call was made, Denise Davidson was under surveillance. And they actually witnessed Denise walk out of the business, go to the payphone, and then call her own home.
As evidence continues to stack up against Denise, detectives continue monitoring her calls for another week.
Denise Davidson and her father in Jamaica had a conversation. She felt like the police were closing in on her. And her father suggested that, they can't arrest you if they can't find you. We let surveillance know, look, just be on a little heightened alert. And it was around 5 o'clock in the morning on March 4th. Surveillance is by us. Denise stayed home, went to the airport, went to the ticket counter, and stand in line behind her as Denise purchases a one-way ticket to Kingston, Jamaica. I told her she's under arrest for the murder of her husband. The FBI agent put the handcuffs on her.
She thought she was still in the court order that had been given her and Louis during the divorce proceedings not to take Natalie out of the country. So she made arrangements to
We had detectives travel to Jamaica. Detective DeSero actually went to Jamaica and interviewed Leo Cisneros himself. The first time I went to speak to Leo, he denied any knowledge of involvement. One of the interesting things that he said to us was,
What would happen if I told you that I sent somebody there to beat him up and they just got carried away?
The summer wind up slap cuffs on him and drag him back that day from Jamaica, but unfortunately, we just couldn't get the warrant issued to us.
Back in the States, detectives keep plugging away at their case. And on March 22nd, they finally catch a break.
We had a warrant issued for Susan Shore, and Susan Shore was located in Kingston, Jamaica. Kingston police had identified her and stopped her.
Susan Shore is immediately extradited back to the States. In an interview with detectives, the 26-year-old comes clean about her role in the crime.
She really didn't know Gordon and McDonald at all. She had met them at the Hialeah racetrack in Miami.
She was basically asked to drive McDonald and Gordon up to Tampa Bay. She maintained that she did not know the real reason why they were being asked to be driven around in the St. Petersburg area.
Susan tells detectives she drove Robert and Daryl to the Days Inn on the night of January 24th, 1994.
She had done it in exchange for $100. It turns out the reason why they were doing that and the reason for the 52 calls to the pager were because they thought that Louis Davidson was going to get home about 7 in the morning. But he'd been held up by a meeting, so they were kind of killing time waiting for their victim to show up.
Susan says once Louis arrived, Robert told her to wait in the car.
At that point, they think Gordon and McDonald rushed him in and then beat him up and killed him.
Susan tells them
Gordon was very agitated and was waiting for somebody. Finally, Leo Cisneros showed up and Denise showed up. The two of them talked to the two hitmen at some length.
the information from Susan helps detectives finally secure an arrest warrant for Leo. Now they just have to find him.
We were going back to Jamaica. We got a warrant for Leo Cisneros to arrest him, and he fled the country.
With Leo on the lam, detectives turn their attention to the other accomplice yet to be accounted for, 47-year-old Daryl McDonald.
Utilizing phone records in October of 1994, we found Earl McDonald hiding out in New York, again using an alias. We arrested him without any fight, and we brought him back to Florida for prosecution.
Coming up, as authorities try to strengthen their case against Denise, they uncover a slew of secrets.
She was booked, I believe she was about 4 months pregnant.
And will resurfacing allegations throw a wrench in the state's case at trial?
She was every battered woman I ever worked with.
Unbeknownst to her, he had hired these two hitmen, and it was all his doing.
St. Petersburg detectives have arrested 4 individuals in connection with the brutal death of 39-year-old Dr. Louis Davidson.
So now we had Denise Davidson, Robert Gordon, Earl McDonald, Susan Shore, all in custody, and the only person who were lacking was Leo Cisneros, who had fled Jamaica.
With Leo on the run, authorities continue strengthening their case against the others and find 2 substantial motives.
Denise Davidson had notified the county jail personnel that she was pregnant.
It turns out that it was Leo Cisneros' child, which sort of gave an added urgency to her wanting to move to Jamaica to be with him. But she couldn't go to Jamaica unless Louis let her go with her daughter, and he was making clear that that wasn't going to happen.
We also found there was a life insurance policy for the life of Dr. Davidson for $400,000.
On September 5th, 1995, the trial for Denise Davidson gets underway. Prosecutors assert that Denise played a very large part in her husband's demise.
Denise Davidson had hired the men
After the murder,
Leo and Denise came to the Days Inn and met with Robert Gordon and with Marilyn McDonald to talk with them at some length. So that really nailed down that Denise was very much involved in the murder.
Prosecutors surmise that on January 24th, 1994, Robert, Meryl, and Susan waited around until the doctor got home, and then the two men attacked.
The struggle really goes on from almost the moment that Dr. Davidson opens the front door. We never knew for sure exactly what it was they used to bludgeon him with.
He's been hog-tied. His arms and feet tied behind him with a vacuum cleaner cord and a cashmere belt. And he's been submerged in this tub and drowned.
The defense counters by placing the blame entirely on Leo Cisneros.
Denise Davidson's defense was that she had nothing to do with this. Unbeknownst to her, Leo Cisneros had hired these two hitmen, and it was all his doing.
To bolster their claims, Denise takes the stand in her own defense.
The defense presented Denise's case as if she had been a victim of domestic violence. She was once again the victim of a man who would want to control her, which would be Leo Cisneros.
Denise has very flat affect, but that's pretty classic when somebody is abused, controlled, powerless. She was a stunningly beautiful young woman, but she was every battered woman I ever worked with.
The prosecution tore into her with cross-examination. They definitely turned against her and said, this was the lie was right from the start. There was no physical evidence presented that she had been abused. Probably the biggest moment was when the prosecutor played the audio tape of that phone call where she called her own phone, disguised her voice, and left the message, Denise, you'll be sorry. At that point, she just kind of deflated. You could just see the whole air going out of her. It was at that moment that she knew that we.
On September 16th, the jury finds Denise guilty of first-degree murder. She is sentenced to life in prison.
It was as it should be. She should be punished. Dr. Davidson didn't deserve any of that, and it just left a big hole in a lot of
Hitmen Robert Gordon and Meryl McDonald receive a more severe punishment.
Ultimately, the jury found them guilty of first-degree murder.
They were sentenced to death, and they are still on death row.
In exchange for her testimony against the others, Susan Shore receives probation.
We charged her with accessory after the fact, and she was deported back to England.
Leo Cisneros still faces a first-degree murder charge, but has yet to be captured.
To this day, they still don't know exactly where he is and where he went. They don't even know if he's still alive.
Denise continues to maintain her innocence. She has never wavered on that. And she now believes that Gail was the one and only responsible for this, and felt that he intentionally let her take the rap for him. For those who knew Dr. Lewis Davidson, his memory will live on, despite the tragedy of his death.
His family and those closest to him had their heart and soul ripped out, and the world is certainly worse off for not having him in it.
Today, I am going to just go over some of the things that I'll be using when I'm making my coffee show. I have my measuring spoons. I am going to make ravioli afterwards. So over here, I did start doing the filling, okay? And I'm going to have a meat filling. My stamps, even though I will be using my trusty sheeter, and it has a poster attachment. You can see the squares. growing pains. Contact my scraper, my bench scraper. I cut for my water. Cut for the flour. And I'm also going to use some seminola flour. So it'll be a quarter cup of that. Okay. Well, see you soon.
Everyone believed that they were at some risk, not knowing if this was a random act or there's something really intentional here.
With each passing day, the horror grows.
There was scanner traffic about foot remains found on the Ridge Parkway.
When you have a body that has been dismembered and burned, that speaks to a high degree of malice.
She said that he just got irate, that they got into this fight.
She was like a woman in two heaven.
After a string of gruesome discoveries, a family's darkest secrets are revealed.
At that time, I believe he denied the affair.
She had agreed to pay the money back. I think it was about $60,000. There was no hiding the dislike for each other.
It was shocking to me, the entire courtroom was shocking.
Her language just got real.
Friday, March 26, 2004. The sheriff's office in Henderson County, North Carolina, receives a call from a woman who says she wants to file a missing persons report. The woman says it's been 2 days since she's been able to reach her close friend, 48-year-old Don Gash.
She shared with friends and family that she was concerned about his whereabouts because they talked frequently and visited with each other frequently, and he was nowhere to be found.
There was no more communication from him, so they became more and more concerned.
The woman tells deputies it's not like Don to go off the grid.
Don Gash was the fire chief of the Etowah Volunteer Fire Department, a community icon. You'd see him at the convenience store, you'd see him at the Friday night high school football game. Don Gash was a good guy, served his community, loved the kids' community, did things to help other people. Always friendly. He's just not a guy who's going to disappear to stay missing.
Sheriff's investigators open the missing persons case and begin a search for Don.
At that time, there really wasn't a whole lot of leads that we could follow up on. We had decided to do the ultimate project that Saturday morning. We approached the home and Don Gash, the son.
Detectives asked to speak with Don's wife, Gail. They learned that Don Sr. isn't the only one missing.
When we arrived and spoke with Don here, he said he didn't know where your mom was.
Don Ash said that he last seen his father on Thursday evening, the following morning, Friday morning, and she was asleep. Later, after work, he also noticed that his own car was missing.
But 31-year-old Don Jr. assumes that his mom must have borrowed it without asking, something that wasn't out of the ordinary.
He was cooperative, but he didn't have as much information as they thought he should have about his parents' whereabouts. He said that he wouldn't see them for a couple days at a time.
Investigators asked permission to expand their search efforts.
They have a large amount of acreage, and Mr. Gash, the son, allowed them to look all over the property.
As police canvass the property, Don Jr. calls his sister, 27-year-old Leslie Gash.
There were no more serious shots.
Center home, Don grew into a well-adjusted teenager, active in sports and the future farmers of America.
He was outgoing. He had a lot of really close friends. He played football. He was definitely involved in stuff.
In high school, Don became infatuated with a popular classmate named Gail Hutchinson. The youngest of three daughters, Gail was raised in a strict religious household.
She wasn't allowed to go to the movies. If church was open, she just didn't get church.
But when she fell for Don Gash, Gail threw caution to the wind.
They started dating in high school. He was a football player. She was a cheerleader. My mom got pregnant her senior year and my dad's junior year. It was not an option for them to not get married. So they went to the magistrate in Greenville, South Carolina, and got married.
In October 1972, the newlyweds 12 years later, and the young family moved onto the 21-acre cattle farm where Don grew up, soon joined by Gail's mom.
My grandmother ended up having a tractor on the back of our property.
Gail stayed home to raise the kids, while Don punched the clock at the local paper mill.
He made pretty good money because he worked there 15 years, and he was a part of the union. So, I wouldn't say super well off, but we were comfortable.
But in 1984, those lighthearted days were suddenly cut short by a tragic event.
My mom's trailer caught fire when I was in second grade. My grandmother, at the end of her life, became an alcoholic. She passed out with cigarette around, and that's how the fire started.
Don ran out there and got his mother-in-law out of the mobile home while it was on fire. Unfortunately, it was a little too late into the injuries that she had sustained prior to him getting her out. She died for Don. He felt like that if he had got there just a minute earlier or something like that, it may have turned out different. Gail just kind of took a down spiral. She blamed herself and that her mother couldn't be saved. It seems like that changed her as a person from there on out.
When her highs were high, it was really great. When her lows were low, they were very low.
3 years later, in 1987, more bad news struck the family.
Don wasn't able to work. He had developed a tumor on his spine.
At the very beginning, when he was diagnosed, it was kind of like, well, this is probably going to kill you. And then it was like, okay, well, we can do surgery and this could paralyze you. I remember being a little kid and, being nosy and finding one of my mom's journals and just kind of, how scary that was for her, how scary that was for my dad.
Surgeons successfully removed the tumor, but the operation left Don permanently disabled.
After that, he could work a little bit, but he could not extensively work over time. He couldn't sustain the physical kind of work that he was used to doing. He tried to farm little cattle and, tried to make ends meet the best way he could.
Things definitely changed after my dad went out of work after the surgery. I definitely saw, a struggle.
To help keep up with the mounting bills, Gail decided to go back to school, and in 1991, she earned her bachelor's degree.
She ended up going to UNCA, which is a university in Asheville, North Carolina, and she got
different jobs throughout the community. Department of Social Services. She worked for a law firm.
As Gail thrived in her newfound career, Don followed his own passions and became an assistant football coach. He also spent more time at the firehouse.
I saw Don compensate by doing things that he was still able to do. The fire prevention program was near and dear to his heart, mostly because I think what had happened with his mother-in-law.
They spent a lot of time with youth football. His farm, all the businesses, his cattle, his hay, and volunteer fire department. That right there will take up a good bit of your time.
By the end of 2003, after 30 years of marriage, it seemed Don and Gail had successfully weathered all the adversities thrown in their paths. However, when no one can reach the couple in March of 2004, worried family and friends believed they might be in danger.
Go the other way, Eddie. Come around this way. Hmm?
Because it was I had to draw a question. Law enforcement were very motivated to find out what had happened. Coming up, desperation grows with one
Eddie? Okay. No, you go on. Keep doing what you're going to do.
Somewhere a body could be.
There was a large human torso with the head, arms, legs, all found. It was a lot to take in, a lot to try to absorb, and still at the same time going, this can't be real.
I'm crocheting. I'm crocheting. Okay. Keep going. Come on. Right. Come on. Come on. No. Come on, Eddie. Come on. No. Oh. There you go. Get up there. What? You have to polish? Eddie. Now here comes Lulu. Everybody. Okay. All together now. All together now. All together now.
Detectives located the vehicle that Gash was driving. That vehicle was found with the keys in ignition and on position. The truck was discovered was behind this barn. Anybody that would drive even to the barn would not have seen this truck had they not walked behind the barn.
Eddie, get off of her like that. Eddie, stop that.
Somebody had made some effort to hide the fact that Doug was gone. Detectives noticed something else near the barn.
There was evidence of some sort of burn pile of some description, which is not unusual with debris that's cleared in that kind of thing.
Inside the barn itself, investigators searched for anything out of the ordinary.
The barn probably had seen better days, not necessarily kept very clean, but it was functioning for the animals that they had.
In the barn area, there's a tub that was located for those large rubber storage containers. A deputy opens the lid. He found a horror film. There was a large human torso with the head, arms, legs, all cut off. They could observe that those limbs had been severed with a sharp instrument. Investigators are able to discern that the victim is male with a large, unique scar on his back.
It was partially scorched, looked like somebody had tried to burn the torso and was successful because, it takes a lot of heat to destroy that much flesh.
With the discovery of a body, police stopped down further investigation.
We backed off, and at that point, I was designated to go write a search warrant.
As authorities secure the scene, Leslie Gash steps right into a nightmare. I'm coming up on the edge of our property. I see Sheriff's Deputy vehicle. And, police cars and just a lot of people.
Eddie, come around.
Everything in my house, and it was, yeah. Our language just got real. Because I didn't know what it was, but I knew whatever that was that I was saying was not good. Suspecting that the mutilated corpse is Don Gash Sr., investigators ask if Don had any distinguishing physical characteristics. He had a pretty good size skull. He told me that they had my father's torso on the property. And they knew it was him because of the scar on his back. After that, it's fog, haze. Don Sr. presumed as their victim, investigators turned their attention to his wife.
Everybody wanted to find out where was Gail Gash. Was she a suspect or was she also a victim?
It was a lot to take in, a lot to try to absorb, and still at the same time going, this can't be real. We need answers, and we really weren't getting them.
As investigators broadened their search perimeter, they made a key discovery.
The car that was known to be driven by Don Edward Gash's son was located in the cemetery, probably a half a mile walking distance from the house. When they looked in the car, there appeared to be blood on the seat and steering wheel. Keys weren't in it. Who was driving that car? Where are they now? Why would they park it away from the house rather than at the house? Don Gash, the son, told investigators that his mother was the one he thought had driven that car. Was she abducted from this car? Or is she hiding? Nobody did.
As investigators begin processing the vehicle for prints and DNA, a search party steps off into the nearby woods.
We had used both patrol canines and bloodhounds to track and find someone that's missing. We had enough boots on the ground, so to speak, that we were able to cover all the ground between where the car was and the residence.
When the search fails to yield leads, investigators call Don Sr.'s children to the station and put them through critical questioning.
That's when it kind of started with wanting to separate me and my brother, start asking us questions and assuming all of this stuff. And it was just, it was really disheartening and instantly made me angry. Put me against my mom, put me against my dad, put me against my brother, vice versa. I just want to find out what's going on, we want to help.
While investigators work to clear Leslie, they are becoming more concerned with her brother, Tom Jr.
At the time he told us that he had been there at the home the whole week, it didn't make sense that someone could be there every day and not have at least had some concern that something had happened.
He said that he would not see his parents for days at a time while he is living in this house, on this property that he maintained and took care of.
There were things that didn't add up with what he was saying. His behavior that day led the investigators at the time to take DNA and fingerprints.
As detectives look for other possible leads, news of the brutal murder spreads through town.
I think the overall reaction was just, no way, disbelief, kind of shock, what the heck's going on?
It's like, why? Why would someone do that?
The Don that I knew would never provoke such an incident. There was no way that I could imagine that he would have caused such rage in anybody to do something like that.
The shock felt through the community is also accompanied by fear.
That's just not a crime that, you expect to see anywhere, and not really in this area.
When you have a body that has been dismembered and burned, that speaks to a high degree of balance. That's what I think causes a high amount of concern to the community. This was a very mean-spirited crime, and they were wondering if this person or persons were still at large and if others would be at risk.
Coming up, as the search heats up, everything cops think they know about the Gash family is about to be turned upside down.
It was obvious that they were having trouble making ends meet.
Maybe a lot more problems in a relationship than fucking deal with.
That was just mortifying. Just mortifying.
On March 27, 2004, the discovery of Don Gash's torso stashed in his own cat barn has all of Henderson County clamoring for answers.
I need a boo-boo. I want to decrease it.
What else was happening and occurring in his life that would have brought about this terrible death?
Adding to the mystery, Don's wife Gail is still missing. Hoping for more leads, investigators dig into the couple's home life.
Maybe we'll probably relationship with both people around in this area. They don't usually very long, but they keep things to themselves.
You know, as a husband, you can tell that Don had some challenges there.
There was a common suspicion in the family about Don's relationship with a close family friend.
My dad and her never spent all their time together. Because my mom worked when I was in high school, people thought that was my mom.
Gail was aware, and she actually confronted Don, and at that time, I believe he denied the affair.
It was never 100% confirmed by anybody. My mom was definitely uncomfortable by it, because they were literally together all the time. And then after a while, it was embarrassing.
About 4 years before their disappearance, Don and Gail started sleeping apart.
First, they tried to blame it on my mom's snoring and my dad grinding his teeth. Of course, that's why they're sleeping in separate rooms. And then it just kind of became what it was. My mom slept in the room, my dad slept on like the pull-out sofa. And then that's how it was up until everything happened.
Investigators also discovered that Gail's suspicion of infidelity wasn't the only problem plaguing their marriage.
My parents had gotten behind on their mortgage. My mom didn't want my dad to lose the property. And she made a really terrible decision.
Dawn wasn't making a lot of money. Ended up taking on multiple jobs. She took one job in particular at a milk plant. And while she was working at that particular job, she began stealing money from the organization.
I believe she was the administrative assistant for the president. She got a new vehicle, we got a new stove, some things we needed for the house.
Subsequently, she was caught and charged with obtaining property by false pretense.
That was just mortifying. Just mortifying. She had fully confessed to her involvement in doing that, and I think it was about $60,000. Don did what he could to help pay off Gail's debt, but it wasn't enough. And it was obvious that they were having trouble making ends meet.
It was then, in 2001, that the already strained marriage plunged to an all-time low.
There was no hiding his life for each other. There was no hiding. My dad being up till 1 and 2 in the morning on the phone for several hours. At that point, it just kind of became like, well, who cares?
Armed with a deeper understanding of Don Sr.'s personal life, investigators reach out to the alleged mistress, who was the first to report Don missing. The woman denies having an affair with Don, but admits they were very close friends.
She last had telephone communication with Don the night before he was likely murdered. Her alibi was that she was home. She was quickly ruled out as having a motive for disappearance.
However,
Don had told her that if he ever went missing or ever was killed, to suspect his wife and his son.
it's a stunning accusation, but before investigators can track the new lead, they receive word of a grisly new development 30 miles away.
Limbs and a head were found off the Village Parkway. They could observe that those limbs had been severed with a sharp instrument.
Knowing what we had already heard in the community about the fire chief and then the subsequent rumor that his wife was missing as well, seemed to be that it was all adding up to an obvious conclusion.
The remains found on the parkway are collected by crime scene investigators. On March 29th, 2 days after the search for the Gashes began, the body parts are analyzed and confirmed to be a match to Don Gash.
In looking at the head, the medical examiner was able to determine that Don Gash had died of blunt force trauma. His skull was fractured. He had received multiple blows to his head and face area.
Serrated marks suggest the body was dismembered with a saw.
The medical examiner determined that any of the burning and that any of the severing, the limbs, all of that
autopsy provides more context for Don's murder. Investigators are no closer to knowing who killed him. Plus, they've still found no sign of Gail Gash.
Okay. All in my face. Huh? Okay. I got you.
Was missing. The car that she had been thought or believed to be driving was found within a half mile of their house. And so investigators went just broad in the search of the area.
Investigators secured a search warrant for the Gash property and surrounding areas. On March 2nd, they executed an intensive search.
They began looking for signs of life around there, and that's what led them to a neighbor's crawl space. And they located her.
Rub my hands all over you, huh?
Days of searching, police have finally found the second half of this missing couple.
She was in a crawl space under a storage shed. She was in a wrapped in a blanket.
Coming up, a discovery of evidence leaves investigators stunned.
They turned over the mattress and found copious amounts of what appeared to be blood.
Hey. Eddie. Oh, God, if you can only just see, so you don't think I'm kidding. I mean, what he does. See? I mean, okay, that's enough. Okay, stop now. Why did you do that? If I let you lick me, then what? Come on, I don't want you to lick me right now.
She said she had been there since Saturday before.
I don't want to play with you. I don't want to play with you. Why do you have to have my fingers all in your mouth? Eddie. Hey, now you're nipping at me. Hey, stop. Alright, this is so they can see all of it. Think it not. See? Now he's not doing it. Because he knows I put the camera on. See? Look at Tom. That's nice. This is how you're supposed to be. You should have seen he was all over my hand and my arm.
The investigators are incredibly suspicious of Gail's involvement in her husband's murder. They won't be receiving any answers from her straight away.
She was suffering from hypothermia. She was conscious. She would not speak. She wouldn't talk to them. She was not in good shape. She was taken immediately to the hospital.
Authorities can only hope a formal search of the
Did she kill him? She kill her husband? Yes, there's something on the stove.
Once investigators pulled that couch open, they turned over the mattress and found copious amounts of what appeared to be human blood on this mattress. They then, further deeper search of that room, found what they thought was probably soft type of blood up there on the ceiling.
When someone is bludgeoning someone or hitting them with an instrument, the blood from the victim gets on whatever weapon is being used and can sling off as they're bringing the weapon back over their shoulder and can splash onto the ceiling, on the side of the walls, and that kind of thing.
Assuming they may have found their murder scene, investigators spray luminol all over the room and turn out the lights, waiting for the chemical to glow in the presence of blood.
Unfortunately, it looked like a starry night. Just so many at the moment when we first saw it, because it was just so overwhelming.
The amount of blood indicated that he was killed there. As far as where he was dismembered, it's certainly consistent with it occurring there, but it also could be consistent with the wounds to his head bleeding at a particular location.
That's when I really got a clear picture of how much cleanup that had been done and how much carnage was there.
With evidence that Don's murder took place inside the house, suspicion grows toward the other two residents of the home, Gail Jr. In search of a clear motive, investigators make a game-changing discovery.
There's a policy of life insurance, I believe it was $150,000, that would benefit Gail and the children that Gash died.
Investigators now feel that they have enough to charge Gail with murder. And when she is released from the hospital on April 1st, that's exactly what they do.
The charge against Gail Gash was based on circumstantial evidence. It was based on the fact that she was the one that was hacking her car, that she was driving, that she alone was the one with this financial burden and was under that kind of threat of going to prison. She couldn't come up with this money, have a life insurance policy on them. So when you put all of these circumstances together, that's what the detectives had to go on, and they believed that she had committed the crime of first degree murder.
On April 1st, 2004, Gail is arrested outside Hardy Hospital and is placed in the Henderson County Jail with no bond.
At that point, there was a certain sign of relief.
Though Gail is behind bars, investigators suspect she didn't act alone.
Gail was a small woman, and for her to be able to overpower Don, who was much larger than her and much stronger than her, despite his disability, I just don't see how it could be done alone.
There was a lot of circumstances that the detectives thought made Don Jr. a likely participant in father's killing. Don was known not to get along very well with his dad. He was known to get along more with his mother. Detectives believed that Gail Gash physically could not have lifted the torso, could not have dismembered him. You know, how could one person have done this all by herself?
Prosecutors hope that this question and more will be answered in court. But for now, Don Jr. receives no charges.
At that time, we weren't able to find any evidence that tied Don Jr. to the crime.
On her defense, and one of their first moves aims to combat her husband's prominence within the Hendersonville community.
There was a motion to change venue, and this was a motion based on the media swirl about this homicide.
Don was put on this pedestal of being, a pillar of the community, fire chief, someone that people respected, jumped to, and could do no wrong.
The aim of the defense was to try to get this trial switched from Henderson County to Buncombe County. The concern by the defense was that potential jurors had already formed an opinion about the guilt of his client. Judge Marlene Hyatt ruled against the defense on that motion, so we were set for trial in November of 2006.
Coming up, a community eager for resolution hears a version of Don's final moments.
She confronted him about some things in their past, and then they got into this fight that he began to assault her.
And lingering suspicions of an accomplice haunt the courtroom.
I just don't see how anyone could sleep through that and not hear anything.
What we wanted more than anything was for justice to be served for Don Gash.
November 7, 2006. Just as Gail Gash's trial is about to begin for the murder of her husband, Don Gash, a sudden development takes the courtroom by surprise.
We all went to court thinking that the trial was going to start that day, and he came out and announced that there was going to be no plea deal. He ended up pleading to second-degree murder.
I was disappointed. What we wanted more than anything was for justice to be served for Don Gash. But also we wanted the truth to be told.
During her sentencing hearing, Gail's defense presents their client's version of events.
The defense case was that Gail Gash and Don Gash, her son, and Don Gash, the victim, were all housed together the night of March 25th, 2004. And Gail Gash had gone to put fire on the fireplace, but Don Gash had made some advances towards her. They got into an argument that she confronted him about some things in their past, and that she said that he just got irate, that they got into this fight, that he began to assault her, and that she grabbed for a piece of wood and just started beating
a Jack in the Box, like he came right back up. And
Shock family, those watching, and everybody.
her version of events was after she killed him, she panicked. She didn't know what to do. She hadn't planned this. And so she knew that she had to keep this from her son. That her son was away in his bedroom, that he would be getting up in the morning in a few hours to go to work. So she had to hide his body. She went and got a dolly, put him into an area of the house that nobody went to. She hid there and tried to figure out what to do. That's when she decided that she would dismember him, took off his head, his arms, his legs with a saw. She went and got a tub, rolled the torso into this tub, and wheeled it to the burn area where she attempted to burn the torso.
But Gail's defense claims she became impatient with the incineration process.
It was taking longer than she thought it would. So she got spooked and put his torso back into the tub, put the tub in the barn, and then once she dumped the body parts that were located off the Blue Ridge Parkway, including Mr. Gash's head, arms, and legs, she then came back. She parked that car at the cemetery. She ran to the neighbor's house, to their outbuilding. And that's where she said she hid for days until she was found.
Following the defense's presentation, the prosecution calls Don Jr. to the witness stand. Long suspected to have been involved, they ask him about the night of his father's murder.
For someone to be asleep in a home while your mother is bludgeoning your father to death, and then later dragging his body through the house, I don't see how anyone could sleep through that and not hear anything or notice anything.
But Don Jr. testifies that he had no prior knowledge of the murder, nor was he involved.
Don Gash, though, was never charged with any crime. There was never any actual evidence that we found that tied him to any part of this.
Leslie Gash takes the stand in her mother's defense, testifying that her dad could get easily agitated.
Towards the end, I was drinking alone. I know that was an issue. When the goods were at home, they were really good. And when the bads were at home were bad, they were really, really bad.
At the conclusion of the hearing, and as a part of her plea, Gail is sentenced to 15 years in prison, leading to a general air of disappointment within the community beyond the courtroom walls.
People definitely didn't think justice was served. They felt like the story of Don Sr. and that Gail did not get the sentencing that they felt she deserved.
But for the Gash family, the tragedy is twofold.
The tragedy is a family that completely was torn apart. The tragedy is a man that had so much to give to the community was denied, given it in his later years. It was just a sad thing. I felt really bad for the kids. I'm sure it was something that the kids still want to this day.
People like sit there so kind of like, why am I doing this? I think it's just because the work was so long. I really couldn't say anything. It wasn't all terrible at all. There were some good times. There was a lot of bad. My mom's not a terrible person. And how these actions, these choices, that remain, whether it was 25 years ago about getting a divorce or 30 years forever getting married, or that all those actions have consequences. Whether you're a woman, a man, a kid, and you're in any form of a bad relationship, get out and talk to somebody. Don't stay quiet, because I promise you, it's not like it just goes away one day. It doesn't. It has long-lasting effects.
A motel clerk disappears, leaving behind a trail of blood. Investigators have their suspect, charge him. A shooting is reported, but investigators have no proof that it really occurred until they can sift